Greetings everyone. In this video I'm going to talk a little bit about how we make urine, how we make wee-wee, and the reason we make urine is to get rid of waste and excess substances that may be in our blood. So it's taking things out of our blood that we don't want and getting that out of our body. And the primary organs for excretion are the kidneys. And inside the kidneys, we're going to talk today about the functional units of excretion, the nephrons. And we'll see this relationship for how nephrons are arranged in the kidney and how the process of excretion is carried out in the kidney. A lot of new vocabulary today. Remember that you're going to be able to use a study card for any big assessment, and that remembering the names of everything not going to be super important. Understanding how this process works, super important. So we have a pair of kidneys in our body, and those kidneys individually are able to do a pretty good job filtering our blood and getting rid of the wastes and toxins that might be in there. And that is evident that a single kidney does a good job, because there are folks out there in the world who, because of disease or injury, have lost a kidney and function just fine on one. There are also lots of people who have donated a kidney to people who have had kidney failure in both of their kidneys, and each of those individuals, the donor and the recipient, do pretty well with just a single kidney. So the kidneys are going to make urine, and in the process of that, they're removing substances from the blood that we don't want in our body anymore. And because the blood is mostly made up of good stuff that we do want in our body, it's important to keep all of that in the fluid, returning all the good stuff to our bloodstream so that we don't lose important nutrients. We have in our kidneys about 200,000 to 2 million nephrons. And there's quite a bit of variability between individuals, but the people with the fewest nephrons still have a whole lot of nephrons, a whole lot of functional units in each kidney. And you can see in this picture of the gross anatomy, the big picture anatomy of the excretory system, that we have our two kidneys that are sort of in the dorsal back part of our body, and they are connected by some really big arteries and veins that carry blood to and away from the kidneys. And there are tubes connecting each kidney to the urinary bladder. So as the urine is produced in the kidneys, those ureters carry the urine down to the bladder, and then a similarly named tube, the urethra, is the exit path for the urine to get out of our body. So urine is made in the kidneys, carried from the kidneys to the the urinary bladder, where it's stored until we're ready to go to the bathroom, and then exits the body through the urethra. Getting a closer look at an individual kidney, we see that there is an interior that's really like a whole bunch of funnels that attach to a single tube. So as the urine is being produced in the nephrons, which are arranged around the outside part of the kidney, and you don't need to know these terms, the renal medulla and the renal cortex. The outer part is called the cortex. The inner part here that is still pink is called the renal medulla. You need to know that, but that's where the nephrons are arranged. And they're microscopic, and we'll see what they look like up close in a second. But all the nephrons are connected to one of these little tubes that eventually connects with this common opening that's called the renal pelvis, and that drains into the ureter. So this is how the liquid waste, the urine that's produced in the kidney, gets funneled into the ureter and then winds up in the bladder. So here is an individual kidney, and again, There are lots of terms here, and well, I'm going to name things as we talk about it, but remembering the names of all these things, not that important. What is important is understanding the big picture for how the kidneys function to remove the stuff that's not so good from the blood, the wastes and the excess substances that we don't need, and to keep all the good stuff that is in the blood, the water, the salts, the proteins, the glucose, other energy and nutrient molecules that we need for survival. So one individual nephron is highlighted in the box on this slide. And again, that is arranged towards the outside part of the kidney. And there are nephrons crammed all together throughout this outer ring of the kidney bean shaped kidney. And what happens in the nephron is that blood enters through an artery and is fed into what looks like a knot of capillaries, a tangled knot of capillaries. And that tangled knot is called a glomerulus, and that is where the capillaries are especially leaky. All the capillaries are a little bit leaky, and in the glomerulus, they're especially leaky. And so some of the liquid portion of the blood, in which there would be dissolved lots of good stuff, but also those wastes and those toxins that we want to get rid of. So as the liquid portion of that blood that enters the glomerulus oozes out, it's captured in this cup-shaped structure that's called the capsule, or Bowman's capsule, if you would like to honor Mr. Bowman. And that capsule is, again, like the top of a funnel that captures the liquid and feeds it into this twisty tube that is called the nephron tubule, or the kidney tubule. And the individual parts of the tubule, I'm not going to ask you to remember. There are some specific functions that happen in the distinct areas of the tubule, but I'm not going to ask you to regurgitate that. If you're curious to know details, this is a fascinating process, and I'm happy to help you learn as much as you want about it. So, as the liquid part of the blood leaks out and enters the tubule, it travels through in this twisty path and eventually winds up in a collecting duct. And you can see these branches off the collecting duct that would lead to other nephrons. And if that liquid stays in the tube, it eventually is going to go down to the renal pelvis and to the ureter, which means then it's urine. It's heading to the bladder. That stuff is going out of the body as urine. So as the filtrate, the liquid part of the blood that oozes into the nephron, as it's passing through, the job of the nephron really is to take back, to recapture all the nutrients. And what happens inside this nephron tubule is very much analogous to what's happening in our small intestine with our digestive system. We have food passing through our digestive tract, and if that food stays in the digestive tract, it eventually goes out the other end through our anus, and we lose that through the process of egestion, or pooping. So it's the job of the cells in the small intestine to capture all the good stuff, all the nutrient molecules, and pull them into the blood. Likewise, it's the job of all the cells that line this nephron tubule to actively transport and to use other means of cellular transport, like facilitated diffusion and just simple diffusion, to recapture all the good stuff that was in the blood. So that by the time that liquid reaches the end of this nephron tubule up here at the distal convoluted tubule, when it dumps into the collecting duct, there is nothing left in that liquid but wastes and toxins that we don't want, plus a little bit of water to wash it all down. That is urine. And you can look at the slideshow where I have detailed the steps of this process, but I'm just trying to give you an overview here, big picture, and we can talk about questions that you have and details when we are together in class next time. Trying to get the big picture here. So there's really two ways this could have worked. We could have sent the blood to our excretory organ and just selectively pulled out the bad stuff and dumped that. But that's not the way the kidneys work. That could be an effective way, but that's not the way our excretory system works. Instead, we send the blood to the kidneys, let all the liquid part of the blood, with all the good and bad stuff dissolved in it, enter these excretory tubules, the nephrons. And then it's the job of the nephrons cells to grab back all the good stuff before that liquid leaves the nephron and becomes urine. All right, so last piece of this is just a very brief discussion of how we control the functioning of our kidneys. You are probably aware that sometimes you make a lot of urine and sometimes you make very little. All night long, most of us sleep without having to urinate. And that's because during the night, our body is producing antidiuretic hormone. Diuresis, more or less, means making urine or making excess urine. And so antidiuretic hormone is against making lots of urine hormone. And antidiuretic hormone is a message to the cells in our kidney to absorb even more water than they normally would, so that we make a lower volume of very concentrated, strong yellow, sometimes dark yellow urine. And that's to preserve water. When water is in short supply, when our blood volume is low because we've been sweating a lot or we haven't drank much recently, antidiuretic hormone will be released and it will tell the kidneys we need to conserve every drop of water we can. So our bodies are able to make a very low volume of super concentrated urine. And it's also able to get rid of excess water if our blood volume is too high because we just, guzzled a liter bottle of water. And it's really hard to drink too much water, but it's actually possible to do that. There is a medical condition that happens and it can be lethal if you drink too much water. So there are other hormones that are involved in the system, but ADH is the main one that I wanted to mention, and it helps us to control not only preserving water when we need to, but to control the balance of water and salts in our blood. Because if you do drink a liter bottle of water and your blood becomes more watery because of it, it becomes more dilute, that's not necessarily good because that's not maintaining homeostasis. We want our blood to be the same sort of saltiness all the time. And the kidneys can help us maintain that homeostasis. When we have excess water, we can easily produce a higher volume of urine and dump some of that excess water so that we maintain that homeostasis. All right. That's it for this very brief introduction to kidney function. Please bring your questions, your thoughts, and your ideas with you to class next time. See you soon.